In 1998, Universal Studios Florida opened the F5 of attractions, an experience that was originally going to be very different to what we got. Designed and built in less than 2 years after the success of the movie Twister, Universal Studios was about to ask you to ride out the storm on one of the most impressive physical effect attractions ever designed. First though, let's head into the expedition's pre-show room and start our journey through the world of Twister.
This expedition is about an attraction that is about one of the most primordial forces anywhere on Earth. A ride so powerful it had the word ride in the name, but it wasn't even a ride. Letting you witness one of the most awe-inspiring sights anywhere in a theme park, based on one of the most awe-inspiring sights anywhere in the world. I'm British Bill Paxton, and I'm playing Bill Paxton, playing a storm chaser determined to confront that mystery by getting as close as possible to a raging twister.
And I'm pretend Helen Hunt. And I can tell you that when I agreed to do this, when Sam said he was making an expedition on the history of Twister, I had no idea what I was signing up for. As awesome as this expedition will be, we will be telling you the history of the attraction, its unknown original concept, and more. Just like a Twister, it could be unpredictable and reveal to you tales and troubles untold.
With weeks of research, after a certain point, you start believing this is more than just an expedition about a ride that was in a theme park based on a movie from 1996. Now, we would like to give you that experience that we went through, and join us on the stage to see for yourself the history of Twister. Ride it out.
You can't help it. The role gets to you. It takes on a life of its own. By the end, there's only one thing you can do.
Hold on for your life.
Let's go! Everyone, out of the house now! We have a little kind of storm forward coming to this area.
1996 was a big year for movies, full of blockbusters from Mission Impossible to Independence Day, Space Jam, and Universal's Nutty Professor gracing the screens. Over the years, there have been many movies based around the destruction of tornadoes. Some great, and some not so great. None is more popular though than Twister. Industrial Light and Magic created a CGI clip of a tornado that became the basis of a joint venture between Universal and Warner Brothers, produced by Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, that would eventually turn into the second highest grossing movie of the year. A troubled production called Twister. Directed by Jan de Bont after the success of Speed, and shot on location in Kansas, dubbed as one of the last great disaster movies not shot on a soundstage. The production was called frantic, dangerous, and some even considered the director out of control. After multiple feuds between the cast, injuries and illness, dangerous filming conditions and delays, the movie opened on May 10th, 1996, becoming the 6th largest opening weekend of any movie ever. I could talk about Twister the movie all day, and how well it holds up, yet, as only Universal Studios could do, it was time to take fans of the movie into it. I guess this time literally with fans. The success of the film and the troubled filming of the movie would form the basis for a new idea. Just 2 months after the film opened, Universal Studios made the decision to bring Twister to life, leaving only one question: how? Universal would consult tornado experts, and many believe what the park hoped to build could not be done. Originally, Universal wanted to create an indoor tornado that would be 60 feet tall and 20 feet in diameter, but they figured out fast that it would be incredibly difficult. After having to scale back the original goals and conducting a huge amount of research with wind flow experts, they figured out that they could actually in fact make an indoor tornado, or at least the illusion of one. The film Twister would focus on scientists trying to understand tornadoes. The ride would also come into existence from the world of science. Many companies were using large-scale fans and smoke to create indoor tornado-like effects, and one such example was on display in science centers. Scientists had been studying indoor tornadoes for a few years, but still nobody at Universal really knew how an indoor tornado worked. They had no idea what was going on inside those science centers, so they would have to go inside and find out, and report back. If they knew how it really worked, they could design their advanced theme park ride. Some people asked, weren't there already indoor tornadoes at science centers? And to that, Universal said they were not big enough. They could make it bigger and wider to increase the spectacle. Universal would combine science and art to create the biggest indoor vortex yet seen at its theme park in Florida. To create the effect, they would use dozens of powerful, specially designed fans on multiple levels to create the indoor vortex, including some fans with 7-foot-long blades. Once the how was found to create an indoor twister, came the question of what the overall experience would actually be.
Twister, last summer's blockbuster motion picture hit from Universal Studios, will soon be brought to life in a thrilling new show at Universal Studios Florida. Guests will be treated to a new level of behind-the-scenes movie-making magic as they visit the Twister set. On location with the film's crew and stars, they'll see dynamic demonstrations of the incredible technology and artistry that created the most startlingly real weather effects ever put on film.
The concept idea began with an already existing attraction that had opened in 1992 at Universal Studios Hollywood, Backdraft. This time, however, they would take that experience to the next level, more immersive than anything they had attempted before. In September 1996, they began market research on what they hoped would become Universal Studios Florida's Twister experience. A new level of behind-the-scenes movie-making magic, placing guests literally inside the movie. The wonder of nature, baby, for every park guest to experience.
Indicating the stormy experience that awaits inside Twister is the destruction done to the outside of the building. A tractor is impaled through a wall. Aunt Meg's trashed home lies in ruins, and an ugly sky hangs overhead. Whatever awesome force has struck here, one thing is certain. This isn't Kansas or even Orlando anymore.
Tighten your seatbelts. The original concept for the Twister attraction would be different from the final attraction that would open in the park, but pave way for what was finally revealed in the final version. Originally planned to be called Twister Face the Fury, the original concept had 200 guests enter into a small theater with multi-level rows where a large projection screen would display action scenes from the movie before the film's director showed how they created the effects for the movie, along with the film's stars sharing their experience creating Twister. After Bill and Helen direct the audience's attention below, the small stage in front of guests would create miniature clouds, lightning strikes, and a mini tornado directly in front of the audience. As the small created tornado effect dwindled down, a large special effects fan would blast the watching guests in the face with wind. After this demonstration, the film's director would invite the audience to join him on location in Oklahoma. After passing through Aunt Meg's destroyed house, the next room would take guests into a large exterior set located next to the Oklahoma diner from the film. Unlike in what the final attraction would be, guests would physically be stood in the middle of the set. Standing in the parking lot adjacent to the diner, a setting sun in the distance has clouds part and winds pick up.
Splinter, a grungy, over-caffeinated storm chaser, leaps from a truck, yelling something about checking on his buddy Dusty, who's out on the road somewhere running down a twister.
An actor playing a character called Splinter, a storm chaser, would leap from a nearby truck, yelling that he had to check on his buddy, who was out following a twister. Splinter would use a computer to contact his fellow chaser, Dusty, who would appear on a screen reporting that he was being chased by an F5 tornado, and it was heading right to the audience's location, outside the diner. The tornado would then spin into view on the Horizon IMAX screen at the back of the soundstage, sucking up a barn in the process. As Dusty on the monitor drives into a barn, the feed cuts out. The tornado would then appear to turn towards the diner set and the guests. As simulated rain and hail fell on them, the winds would continue to pick up. Another actor playing a mechanic would burst out of a garage, screaming the twister was here, before telling the guests to follow him inside. The guests were then urged inside the garage, just like the scene from the movie. The two actors slam the garage door shut behind once all the guests are inside, as they hear wind, hail, and thunder outside the garage and the walls shake. Inside, the guests are led to 3 different tier holding areas and warned to hold on. These would be very similar to the 3 tiers in the final attraction. Everything inside the garage would rattle and sway overhead as it got louder and louder outside. Lightning would hit the garage and the windows high above would shatter as the guests feel water drop over them. The doors on the barn would rip open and lightning would hit an electric generator, spawning a huge fireball erupting on the floor in front of the audience, setting it ablaze and spreading up the sides of the catwalks. A section of the whole roof above the guests would be pulled back due to wind, and the guests inside would finally see the F5 tornado above and out of control. It would be here that the Galaxy Diner sign would crash down past the open roof as lightning strobes blind the audience, and items fly all around inside the garage. Here the tornado effect would be used to descend through a hole in the ceiling, twirling down to the floor as winds continue to blow guests. The Twister would pick up the fire inside the garage and would present a twirling tornado twirling into the sky. This fire was eventually drawn out the hole in the roof and the winds would die down and it would get deadly quiet. Just when you thought the experience was over, Splinter's red car would fly through the air into the catwalks above the guests, knocking the walkway above, and the platform the guests would be standing on would fall. You had just survived the original concept of Twister the Ride.
Though the whipping winds snuff out some of the fire's heat, through the gaping hole in the roof, we can now see the monster itself, an F5 tornado, a finger of God, careening wildly out of control overhead. The building shakes like it's going to implode. Stacks of tires are blown out of their roosts, slamming down upon the catwalks and pipes directly overhead. From the sky, through the hole in the ceiling, the Galaxy Diner sign crashes inside, sparking like a 4th of July fireworks display. The guests are hustled toward the garage. The rain lets loose. A violent burst of lightning briefly reveals the size of the monstrous funnel bearing down upon the diner. And the storm has passed. But just when things start to quiet down, just when you think it's all over, bam! Splinter's red storm chaser spirals out of the heavens like a guided missile, slamming into the catwalk support beams above the guests, knocking the walkway down toward them and jolting the floor underneath, dropping the platforms down, taking away everyone's collective breaths. At last, it's over. The exit doors open and the guests are returned to the real world, relieved that they had survived.
Marketing research for this new idea was extremely positive, and the concept would literally place guests of the park into a scene from the movie, recreating it all around them. There was an earlier alternative concept that actually would include ride vehicles, which took guests past the scenes from the movie, but it was deemed too expensive. Though originally planned to feature in the attraction, Twister's movie director Jan de Bont was not involved in the project, but did sit through a presentation with Steven Spielberg about the attraction and commented that he just wanted a lot of flying debris and a lot of intensity. Spielberg apparently loved the idea and wanted to know how they had achieved the effects. In October 1996, less than 6 months after the film's success, Universal Studios Florida announced that they would be closing the park's Ghostbusters Spooktacular attraction on November 8th, saying it was time for a change. No further details were given on what would change until around 3 months after the attraction's closure. Universal had announced the rumored Twister attraction was coming and would use a man-made indoor cyclone that would circulate 2 million cubic feet of air per minute to create a funnel cloud 50 feet tall. In 1998, those visiting Universal Studios would be called upon to ride it out, hence the attraction's name, putting guests in the park against nature to experience the destructive force of an actual tornado. The whole project took only 18 months to complete, from concept to realization, with 500 people working on it during peak times. With a deadline set, companies such as Attraction Services of Valencia, who were working on some of the special effects, were clocking in 30 hours of consecutive work to try and meet the attraction's deadline. Each set piece that was installed had an effect on the vortex, and it constantly had to be recalibrated as it was originally tested in an empty, undressed room. The original concept for the attraction, placing guests inside the experience with live actors, would have been extremely expensive, hard to achieve, and perhaps maybe a bit too scary, and what was originally planned would be scaled back. The bones of the original idea, though, will be kept. Much of the cohesive story, taking guests through the attraction, a demonstration, and into Oklahoma, finally ending with the action, will be lost. Before the attraction had opened, in 1997, just like the movie production, troubles began. North Hollywood company Real EFX Inc. filed a lawsuit that Universal Studios had stolen the effects for their tornado, and that they had demoed the technology to Universal Studios, who broke off their negotiations for the product. The company had often worked with Universal Studios on different projects, and the matter was settled, and it was reported that Universal would license the effect.
Wow, let's do that again!
New Twister. It's gonna blow you away. Only at Universal Studios Florida. Come ride it out.
The former Ghostbusters attraction building would be reconfigured. Guests would enter into an outdoor queue, which featured many props from the movies. The large queue featured director chairs for Spielberg, Paxton, and Hunt. Real tornadoes were shown on screens to build up anticipation, showing facts, and asking questions. And guests could see a replica Dorothy 2. And, of course, many references to Esmu's Dairy. One being a cow that, if you pressed a button, would moo and say to drink Esmu's milk. Most of the outdoor queue and props were removed for Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket when it was constructed. Thanks again, Sid.
Hiya, Sid Vinyl here in the flesh with a big announcement and to say hello to all my fans. Hello.
The queue was shortened and cut back so guests would enter Soundstage 50 without the incredible outside section. The first of two pre-shows featured Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt talking about their experiences making the movie, along with a room full of more props.
The movie Twister is about one of the most primordial forces on the face of the earth. A force so powerful, so concentrated, you can rip the asphalt off a 6-lane highway.
Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton reportedly disliked each other after the difficult filming of the film. Behind-the-scenes extras of the movie talk about how Bill Paxton struggled to adapt to Helen Hunt's forceful nature. So much so that rumors abound that they refused to film again together. And when it came to filming the scenes for the ride, they would have to film separately and act like they were talking to each other.
By getting as close as possible to a raging Twister.
And I'm Helen Hunt. I can tell you that when we agreed to make Twister, we had no idea what we'd signed up for.
Somewhat awkwardly. The actors have only ever had praise for each other in what they have said publicly over the years, so the exact extent of their dislike of each other is realistically unknown, but they were rarely seen together after the movie was released.
They wrecked 7 square blocks of Waukita, Oklahoma, so it looked just like 1990 when a Twister destroyed houses outside of town. Waukita's smack in the middle of Tornado Alley, where the worst storms happen.
Pre-show 2 was set in Aunt Meg's destroyed house from the film, using the location of the old Ghostbusters pre-show. There are more Easter eggs, including a Disney one within.
Scientists call tornadoes severe storms. That doesn't begin to describe what they can be like. Or what it took to put that experience on the screens.
TVs continue to show clips from the film and talk about the extreme making of the movie.
At a certain point, you can't tell the difference between the movie and reality.
You start believing the Twister is not just a weather condition. It takes on a life of its own, becoming an entity, a demon spirit, a devouring colossus bent on destruction. By the end, there's only one thing you can do. Hold on for your life.
Static goes on the screen and alarms sound as you're ushered into the final show scene. Bill's wooden performance aside, the pre-show experience did a great job of building up tension, making you feel eerie and hyping visitors up for the final experience. Whether that finale met the expectations built up is another question entirely. The show begins with Channel 5 issuing a tornado warning. The set resembles the Galaxy Drive-In Theater and Rocket Hamburger's diner scene from the movie. Guests look on from the 3-tiered standing area before the weather begins to turn. A tornado is projected on a screen at the back of the viewing area, giving the illusion of a much bigger open space than it actually is. As the winds pick up and the windows shatter, an effect which took some time to perfect, 2 flying objects fly through the air. Dorothy, out the back of a truck, the tornado tracking machine, and Esmu the cow. Both were suspended by wires along a track hidden in the roof of the scene. The roof eventually moves up to show the full effect of the tornado. You can see how this evolved from the original concept of the attraction. Again, ending with a hydraulic falling floor below guests to get that final shock moment. Within the room, fans on different levels circulated air to create a really impressive physical effect. Floor-level fans created vertical air movement, mid-level fans created the circular air movement, and intake fans drew air into the building from outside in a counterclockwise direction. There was completely separate fans that blew air in the direction of the guests, up to 35 miles per hour. Through trial and error, they found a way to do this while maintaining the airflow needed to generate the tornado, which could only actually be seen through the use of smoke being injected into it. The amount of effects built in such a small space combined to create a physical illusion of a tornado in front of you. Over the years, the cow used during the tornado scene was updated multiple times. The movie at the drive-in, unlike the one in the film, was not The Shining, but a Universal-owned film, at some point showing Psycho or People Under the Stairs. Each show could hold 240 guests, the max capacity of the attraction being 2,400 per hour, with a maximum showing of 10 shows per hour. This was only really used on peak days, as it was very expensive to operate a single show. The show combined 55 special effects, hundreds of xenon strobe flashes to simulate lightning, 54 speakers for the immersive audio, 1,500 gallons of recycled water per show, and flame effects. All of the monitors used within to display content featured laserdisc players. And you know my favorite thing is useless stats reported at ride openings, while Twister had enough wind flow through the attraction in 1 minute to fill 4 full-size blimps. All of the effects were computer programmed and could be operated with just one person, who had to observe the show for safety at all times and could instantly stop the experience. The team member operating the attraction would have to hold their hand over a sensor while the show was in operation, and if it was removed, the attraction's effects would be cut. Sensors lined the front of the standing area so it would instantly stop if it detected someone had climbed into the show scene. The show scene took place in the exact same location as the main show for the Ghostbusters Spooktacular. After the show had finished, it took less than 1 minute to reset for the next show. The experience actually had 2 longer pre-shows than the actual finale. As you exited the experience and survived your ordeal with the Twister, you found yourself in the Aftermath gift shop, which, for a while, sold ride-related merchandise, before it became more generic. Inside, more props could be found, including, of course, another cow. On opening, much was made that, like the movie, the attraction would be a PG-13 experience and small children would not be advised to go in. One newspaper quoted that it was as loud as 110 decibels, the same as a Smashing Pumpkin concert. I'm not sure why they really used that as the comparison, but it works. You gotta love those useless newspaper facts. The park stated that this attraction was too intense for kids. Universal Studios refused to say how much the attraction actually cost, but it has been speculated to make it was anywhere between $16 to $35 million. An opening date was set for April 1998. Many companies collaborated to make the attraction a reality, including Hydrotech and AAA Fluid Power. It all came together to create what many consider one of the best physical displays of effects on any attraction in a theme park. In January 1998, before the ride was finished, a section of the ride shop featuring Twister merchandise debuted. As the ride's spring opening approached, devastation struck the state of Florida.
Central Florida woke up to this. Homes destroyed, turned into piles of rubble, cars were thrown all over the place, and lives were lost. 7 powerful tornadoes swept through neighborhoods from Kissimmee all the way to Daytona Beach, during a 3-hour span.
On February 23rd, 1998, real deadly tornadoes plowed through the middle of the state, injuring hundreds, killing many, and leaving a path of devastation. Within just a few days, Universal Studios Florida announced they would postpone the opening of the attraction after 42 people were killed in Central Florida due to these deadly tornadoes. The store in the park that had previously opened selling Twister merchandise was closed, and in its place, visitors could make tornado relief contributions to the Red Cross. Universal donated $100,000 themselves to the relief effort, stating that it had been delayed out of respect for the communities affected by the tornadoes. The attraction's marketing campaign was modified. A grand opening celebration, which the film stars were due to attend, was cancelled, and it was unknown how long until it would open. The park, talking about the attraction, stated that our intention was to never terrify or show visitors the horrors of a tornado. Our intention was to allow guests to experience an exciting weather phenomenon. It wasn't about real tornadoes, it was about a movie. While the grand opening was delayed, the attraction did quietly soft open in late March 1998, before it was originally even set to open, running nearly daily during the afternoons as final tweaks on the experience happened. After the month's delay, the park set the grand opening day to be May 4th with a softened marketing campaign. Some believe it should be delayed further, while others said it spread awareness of tornadoes. After opening, information was given out about the American Red Cross to those exiting the attraction, and team members communicated what the experience inside was, so those who did not feel comfortable could not enter. Twister Ride It Out officially opened on May 2nd, 1998 to universal praise. Project director Mike Hightower stated that they tore everything in there out and started again, and the results could be unnerving. The 18-minute experience, mostly pre-show, would allow visitors to experience what it's like to see a real tornado, though this tornado used camel groans, lion roars, and animal noises played backwards, just like the movie did for its iconic tornado sound. The 5-story tall, 12-foot wide tornado was dubbed the second best attraction in the park after T2 3D, a must-see and not for the faint of heart. The marketing campaign and billboards were cut back after the real tornadoes, but they did advertise in some different ways, including Universal creating a Twister truck, an 8-ton traveling wind tunnel that it took around to different locations to promote the new attraction. From day one though, parents commented on how they would not let their children ride a tornado ride. The confusing name did not help the perception that it was a ride in some cases, with them expecting the attraction to be more interactive than it actually was, rather than just essentially a special effects show. Parents also questioned the decision to present tornado destruction as family fun. The actual Twister experience inside the attraction was only around 2.5 minutes long. One guest commented though that didn't include the dumb film clips. These comments though seemed to be the minority, as after opening, Twister Ride It Out could see lines up to 3 hours long. It even stayed open and running during Halloween Horror Nights as it was so popular. When asked what it was like, most people answered with,
"It was windy."
Twister remained mostly the same over its years of operation at Universal Studios Florida. Some effects were slightly toned down, and the CRT TVs were replaced, but the core experience remained the same, minus the outdoor queue. While Ghostbusters Spooktacular had only lasted 6 years before being replaced, as the years went on, the popularity of Twister Ride It Out dropped. It did remain a staple of the park, but for those who had done it many times before, it became an attraction you went on when you had done the rest that you wanted to see. In 2015, something would happen that would change the fate of the ride forever. During a storm, while the wrestler Chris Jericho was operating the nearby Rip Ride Rocket Ride, an incident occurred that would knock a park guest from that ride into the soundstage of Twister. The tornado would begin throwing sharks inside the soundstage. A live audience watching the show believed it was part of the experience. Luckily, no one was harmed. While some believe this is only a part of the movie Sharknado 3, it could be no coincidence that Twister Ride It Out would close permanently shortly after. In the later years, Twister began operating less and less. During peak times, or only a few times per day, rumors began that its days within the park were numbered. During Halloween Horror Nights 25, the ride's gift shop was turned into the first ever Halloween Horror Nights tribute store. On October 27, 2015, Universal announced that after 17 years of operation, the final day of the attraction will be November 2nd, 2015. Giving fans only 4 more days to experience the attraction, which would not only be the final day for Twister, but the final night for Halloween Horror Nights 25. A sad night for those of us who were there. They did not include the Sharknado incident in their reasoning, but we all know it has to be more than a coincidence. Like Joe, after Twister closed, we had to move on. Stop looking at the past and look at what we had right in front of us.
Guys, we have big news here. We have our very own ride opening at Universal Orlando Resort.
It would be replaced with a ride featuring Tonight Show host Jimmy Fallon that would be set to open in 2017. There was a rumor at the time that it would basically be Twister interrupted by Jimmy Fallon, a Twister under new management of sorts. However, the replacement ride would reconfigure the soundstage completely, and a simulator would take the place of the former attraction. While Twister is now mostly looked back on fondly, during its final years of operation, it had many haters wishing for its replacement. But it was a sad day when any attraction showing physical effects is replaced with watching a screen while bobbing up and down. The final shows on its last day were an experience by themselves, with fans coming dressed up, shouting out the lines, and cheering to experience the attraction one final time. Just as the final night of Halloween Horror Nights 25 began, Twister Ride It Out closed its doors forever. You slap that log, Bill. The Twister building was gutted once again, and Race Through New York opened at the park in 2017. A few Easter eggs to the attraction that stood before can still be seen. Props from the attraction were sold in the Universal prop shops. Many fans of the attraction were able to pick up signs, Dorothy 2 from the queue, and even multiple cows. The cows of Twister Ride It Out are being well cared for after the attraction closed.
Drink Esmoo milk, fresh from the farm to your fridge.
For years after the movie Twister was released, there have been talk of a sequel movie. With Bill Paxton sadly passing away in 2017, it seemed more and more unlikely to ever happen. Many unofficial, indirect movies have been made trying to use the Twister name. You have to see the Christmas Twister at least once.
There's nothing out here but cows.
I'm telling you, man, this is the right spot. She's out there. I can smell it.
The tornado watch for Northwest Tarrant County.
The director of Twister stated that he wanted the actors not to just be looking at the action, but to be in it, to make it real, and this resulted in the troubled filming of the movie. The original concept for Twister Ride It Out was to put guests at the park inside the movie in the very same way. Sadly, this version never came to be, and instead you did feel kinda like you were basically just watching a special effects show, looking in on the action. Twister Ride It Out, though, remains a special attraction in the hearts of many fans, including myself, even all these years after its closure. The first official sequel, Twisters, was finally made and released in 2024. With the new movie bringing that disaster movie stapled Twister back into our lives, who knows what the future brings for the franchise at Universal Parks.
Hold on for your life.
The former attractions of Universal Studios seem to go round and round in popularity throughout the decades after they close. During its later years, Twister didn't receive as much love as it should have, even being seen as somewhat as a joke that it still existed. Sure, it had its fans for life, like me, but just like most Universal Studios removed attractions as they got older, its popularity decreased until it was gone. The quality of what replaces attraction changes your opinion on the former one and how much you miss it when it is gone. And as the saying goes, you don't know how good you had it until it's gone. The good news is, in 2024, you could once again see a cow fly across Universal Studios Florida 9 years after the attraction closed. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Extinct. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition. Let me know in the comments below what attraction you would like to see covered next, and a special thank you to our Patreons for supporting the channel. We will see you next time.
This expedition is about... As soon as I start... A ride so powerful, it had the name Ride. Had the word Ride in the name, but wasn't even a ride. Hold on for your life.
Yeah, and then a pause. At the end, there's only one thing you can do. Hold on for your life.